Healthy Minds, Healthy Life. I'm your host, Anya. Today's episode is about something we often chase on the outside: innovation, fresh ideas, new direction, but rarely pause to see where it really begins inside of us. Before we launch into strategies and success stories, let's slow down and ask, what happens when burnout strips away our old identity? How do we rebuild from the ground up? And could it be that the most daring risks, the one that fuel creativity and professional breakthroughs, are born out of the quietest, most personal shifts within ourselves? To explore this, I'm joined by a woman who knows this journey intimately. She's an innovation coach, life design expert, and international best selling author of No Risk, No Fun. And from the ground up, after facing burnout and a complete life reset in her 20s, she rebuilt everything, starting with herself. Now, she guides leaders, creatives, and everyday people to move from exhaustion to bold creativity. Please welcome Ibeth Ayala. Welcome to the show, Ibeth. It's such an honor to have you.
Thank you, Anya. It's such an honor to be here. Thank you for that beautiful introduction as well.
Mhm. So, Ibeth, you have said innovation doesn't start in the boardrooms or strategy decks, it starts within. Can you share a moment from your own burnout and reset where you first realized this truth?
Yes, that is. Oh, thank you. I'm so glad you asked that because when you gave the introduction about when I experienced burnout, you're right. It was in my mid 20s and it was not burnout from work, it was burnout from life. And I share these stories every time I do the innovation sessions because it's a reminder of the responsibility that we carry to be honest with ourselves. And to summarize what happened in my mid 20s is I was in my third year of marriage. I got married young. I originally come from Mexico, and back in the day and in my world where I grew up, it was very common and traditional for us women to get married young and have children young. So at 21, most of the people that I knew, most of the women I knew, had already one child at least. So in my world, I was starting late. So I got married at 21, and the relationship I was in became physically abusive 2 months into the marriage. And I stayed in that marriage. I stayed in that marriage trying to understand what I was doing wrong, trying to understand what I could do to make it better. And it became stressful. It became overwhelming. It became heavy. It became a very draining situation where no matter how I looked at it, I couldn't figure out how to fix it. I couldn't figure out how to fix myself. And it impacted all other relationships in my life. I had less friends. I stopped going to university because I didn't want that to cause problems. I I stopped doing a lot of things that I enjoyed. And there's more to the story and you can read about it more in the book. But it was at the age of 24 that I decided I needed to change. If I wanted it to be different, if I wanted every day to be different, if I wanted every breath in my life to feel different, I had to change my thinking. I had to change my way of seeing that. And it was in that moment that I started to realize one, how powerful I am, and two, what a creative way of looking at life in that way. And so I had to become aware of why am I still here? And there was a lot of fear of being shamed, fear of being criticized, fear of being a failure, fear of being young and divorced. And then I started to realize, well, where are all these fears coming from? And it was programming, community, society. You know, starting with I came from a family where nobody had gotten divorced before. And I didn't want to be the first one. I didn't want to be a failure. So once I realized, okay, well, that's one part. Why am I still here? The second answer was because it's marriage. And I grew up hearing marriage is hard. You just have to move through it. Relationships are hard. And then I thought, okay, where did that come from? Again, outside world. So I made a list of other things, but those were the two major ones. And what I realized is I don't believe in those things. I don't believe marriage is hard. I don't believe relationships are hard. Don't get me wrong. Of course, they can be, you know, complicated at times, but we can make them easier. We can communicate better. We can choose differently. Point of the story is I didn't want my marriage to be hard. If I was going to get married, I wanted it to be easy and flowy and fun. And that's when I decided, what do I want? And I started changing and letting go of these beliefs. Marriage is hard, letting go of you have to try hard, letting go of divorce is shameful. And I started choosing for myself. And ever since my mid 20s, I've been making decisions in my life based on that mentality of I can create my own reality. I can create my own environment and I can enjoy it as much or as little as I can. As I got older, I started working with executives. In 2007, I moved to Germany to study abroad, and I started working with a coach with executives, and I realized they were experiencing the same symptoms I experienced in my age of early 20s. They were feeling burned out from work. And in that aspect, it impacted to burnout from life. And it was through conversations that I realized they were feeling the same things I was feeling when I was in an unhealthy relationship. They were feeling scared, fear of being a failure, fear of being alone, fear of losing their job. So many fears. So I started working with them on how to move through those fears. Fast forward to 2016, I moved to Canada and I was part of a project where we built an innovation lab focusing on innovation, creativity, specifically in the insurance industry. And what I realized again through conversations was the burnout factor, which many of us know that burnout comes from stress levels that get so high that you feel like you can't keep going anymore. You are not able to see hope or see possibilities or see solutions. All the body can feel is stress, which means all it can feel is fatigue, dead end, sadness, depression, anxiety. All of that impacts, as I said before, all the other areas in life. The other areas in life being relationships, work, um, mind, physical health, all of those things, your career, your profession. And so I started focusing a lot on the human aspect of everyone's journey, whether they were an innovator in insurance, an innovator in technology, an innovator in school board, aviation school. I work with an aviation school. And we started implementing this framework that I used in my mid 20s, which I didn't even know it was a framework. I just sat down with myself and thought, okay, I need to figure out a way to make life better for me. And I kept doing that over and over and over, which is basically connecting, creating, and trying. And at the end of the journey, what I've come to realize, acknowledge, and celebrate is whatever feeling of burnout we feel, it has a solution. There is another side of it. It's just finding the right people to support you, finding the right framework or methodology to support you to move through that and techniques. And not one works for everyone. That's why this 3-step approach of connect, create, and try is useful because you're trying to figure out what can I try? What is out there that I can try to see if this is my thing to help me feel unstuck so I can feel lighter, clearer, more alive, more purposeful. And that's literally what happened now in my life since my mid 20s. I'm in my mid 40s now. I have experienced different moments where burnout has shown up. The difference is now I know how to identify the stress levels, where it's at in a scale from 1 to 10, and what part of my framework do I need to jump in to help me get out of that. So, yeah, it's interesting that you asked me that question because yeah, in reality in my world, I experienced burnout the first time with awareness as a young adult in my own in a relationship. It wasn't even at work. It was a relationship. And then I realized later as I moved through life how people in the professional world, especially in the corporate world, feel it so intensely. And that's how I'm able to understand and support people in their journeys.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, makes sense. So, how did that inner realization translate into the external actions that reshaped your life and career?
That realization helped me really understand myself in a deeper way. And it helped me have clarity on what was most important, what was the highest priority, and what was the key thing that I needed to shift to make all the other things around me shift in the same direction. And what I mean by that is it allowed me to get to know myself in a deeper way where I was in that moment. In innovation, we talk a lot about customer experience and empathy. You know, have a human centric approach. Human centric meaning you focus on the needs of the customer, the needs of the stakeholder. When we look at our journey, our personal life, we are the main customer in our own experience. We are the ones that are impacted by every decision that we make. And so that right there, when we take a moment to really connect with ourselves, to really get to know who we are now, because we're constantly changing. Who you are now is not who you were 5 years ago. It's not who you were 10 years ago. Who you are right now, it's not even who you were 10 minutes ago. Because now we're engaging in a conversation and I'm giving you my perspective on things that, in essence, it's inviting you to look at it from a different perspective, from a different lens. And just the simple fact of choosing to look at something from a different perspective is already shifting who you are, who you were 10 minutes ago. So it's very important to get to know ourselves, check in with ourselves, especially when we are in relationships, whether relationships with a partner at home, with our children, with our friends, and at work. Because we need to understand what do we need? What are our needs? What are our priorities? And so that was the biggest realization I had in that journey or in that moment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think so many of us wait for external change, a new job, a new opportunity, before we actually allow ourselves to shift inside. But what you're saying flips that, like reminding us that true innovation starts with the self and not the system.
Oh, definitely, definitely. That was the key thing that when you asked me about the external part, I realized that the external was useless without my own clarity. Let's think about right now. Social media is at its highest. People are on their phones all the time, constantly checking, scrolling, and there's so many external messages, even what we're doing right now. I am sharing this message as an external to invite people to reflect, to choose differently. But I can't make anybody do that. It has to come from within. It has to be an intrinsic motivation. And so, even if, as we continue with the example, social media and health, eating, healthy habits, I see it all the time. There's so many coaches and so many people talking about eat this, no, you have to eat like this, no, only meat, no, only vegan, no, only vegetarian. No matter what is out there, none of it works. None of it makes sense unless the person themselves take a time to get to know themselves, understand themselves, their body, their age, their gender, how they grew up, any health, complications that they have. But only they know that. Even if they would go to a doctor for a consultation, the doctor is only going to make an assumption based on what he hears. But only the actual person knows. So when I think about innovation, for me, innovation, and I say this in no risks, no fun, for me, innovation means creativity. And creativity for me means creation. We are constantly creating. If we reflect on that, every inhale and every exhale in between, we are creating a moment, an experience. Whether it's positive or negative, that's up to us to decide. But we're constantly creating. Think about when you go on a vacation. I use this example a lot. And you forget to bring something, a belt. And you have an important meeting and you have, your pants, your trousers, you're ready to go. And you realize you don't have your belt and you don't have time to go shopping. Our mind is wired to look around for a solution. Like we just do it. The difference is we do that because we get pushed to that moment of you have to do it. Your life depends on it, your career depends on it. And we get creative. Think about places, I grew up in a small village and it was 1980 when I was born. My grandmother was the first person in the village to have a telephone line. Whereas in other countries, in other bigger cities, there were already telephones available. What I'm getting at is I grew up in a small village where we have to get creative to get things done. If you don't have the right tool for something, we had to figure out how. You have a nail, but you don't have a hammer. But we need to make this little house to protect, ourselves from the cold, from wind, whatever. Well, we look for a rock. We look for another piece of wood that it's sturdier. That is innovation. That is creativity. And all of that comes from us, from the ability to think for ourselves, from the ability to think wildly, like when we were children. So any external factors are useless unless we individually give ourselves permission to be creative without limitations.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And your book is called From the Ground Up. That title suggests starting from scratch. But let me ask, do people really need to break down before they can rebuild? Or can we innovate without hitting rock bottom?
Well, ideally, we want to innovate without hitting rock bottom. Um, the reason that book is called From the Ground Up is because in that book, I share the stories. And it's funny how I chose those titles. So From the Ground Up is the book that shows the reader how to be creative and innovative to design a life that they love. Not a life that they're supposed to love, but one that loves, that they love, that means something to them. I call it From the Ground Up because that's what it took for me to wake up and realize I want different. The the relationship I was in at that time, I experienced several different types of physical abuse. in several different months, in several different years. And I kept staying. The reason I left was the moment that person spat in my face. And that was the most humiliating thing I had ever experienced at that time. And that led me to really step into my authenticity, into my truth, and say, what do I want? How do I want to live? And that pushed me to really challenge everything I knew within myself to think differently. So these books are designed for people that are wanting something different and are struggling to get going. So from the ground up is really reminding them, we're going to build from the ground up, meaning you're going to let go of everything you knew. We're going to do an assessment of your life. And we're going to check, what does your ground feel like, metaphorically? What does your ground, what is your life, what is it standing on? And is that working for you? When you think about the life you want to live, does this ground support that design? And when you think about that design, we're considering relationships, we're considering financial stability, we're considering career, profession, health, physical, mental. So relationships. Are the people in your life right now supporting your long-term vision of life? That's where from the ground up comes from. We are building. From the moment the reader picks up my book, they are invited through every chapter to evaluate their life and make a decision. How do they want to live their life? And what needs to change? What do we need to let go of? So that is from the ground up. No risk, no fun is for those people that don't necessarily have to hit rock bottom, but it's about taking risks. And that's why that's more focused to the corporate world. You know, if we have no risk, we're not having any fun. We need to take those risks, but the things that keep us from taking those risks are the things that I talked about earlier, the fear. So in essence, we do have to let go of certain things. We do have to drop them. We do have to take down barriers, walls, limitations, limiting beliefs to rebuild something. It's kind of like if you want to grow a garden, you go, you pick a plot, and you don't just start planting. You have to take out all the old. You have to clean it. You have to move the soil so that you can plant the new vision, the new plants, the new fruits, the new trees, whatever it is you're going to plant. You have to clean it out. And depending on how good you clean it and how good you do it, that's what you're going to see in the future. Right? So to answer your question in summary, sometimes we do have to build from the ground up. Sometimes we do have to tear everything down to understand where are we at now to be able to move forward. And sometimes we have to accept that we have hit rock bottom. And that's usually when burnout kicks in. And other times, like I said, for me, I don't hit rock bottom anymore. What happens now is I am in tune with myself enough to know, oh, things are changing externally, the world, economics, work, the industry. What do I need to shift? That's innovation right there. What do I need to shift to continue to sustainably live my life? But see, now I don't have to hit rock bottom. Now I have enough awareness to say, okay, what are the risks that I need to take so I can continue to have fun, so I can continue to enjoy life?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's so powerful because it challenges the myth that transformation only comes after crisis. And you're giving people permission to start fresh without waiting for life to knock them over.
Oh, definitely. And having worked with the insurance industry for so long, that's an industry that I remind them you're going to have no choice but to adapt to the new changes, the new technologies, the new generations. This is an industry, and I can freely say it, I hear it all the time. And if there's anyone working in insurance listening to it, they're probably nod their head yes. This is an industry that is so traditional that the most common answer I hear from people when they invite me to, do an innovation assessment, when I ask them why are we struggling, they say, well, we've always done it this way. And one of the things that I do at the beginning is I'm giving you exactly what you said. I'm going to give you permission for the next 4 hours. Sometimes I work with them for 4 hours, sometimes 2 days, sometimes, a week. I tell them I'm going to give you permission for the next X length of time that we're going to work together to do it differently, to fail. And when you fail, it'll be my fault. They never fail. It feels like a failure, but something amazing comes out of that failure. We all know this. We learn best from our mistakes. We have to try it. We won't know until we try. So, having that environment of failure is okay, we actually want to fail and we want to do it fast. The sooner we know it doesn't work, the better, right? And transformation, yes, transformation does happen when it feels like you have no choice or you're going to die, whether it's your product, your service, your business, your relationship, your personal health. And so, in essence, having that awareness and knowing that you have something that works for you can prevent you from falling, from failing, from dying. And instead, having enough awareness to freely choose how to go with the flow of life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%. So this has been such a rich conversation with you, Ilbeth. From the courage it takes to start from ground up to reframing risk as a doorway to fun and possibility. You have reminded us that innovation isn't just about products or strategies. It's about the mindset that fuels our everyday choices. And to all our listeners, what's one small risk you can take today? Something uncomfortable yet exciting that moves you closer to the life you want to design. Remember, innovation starts within, and the bravest step is often the one you take with yourself. Thank you, Beth, for bringing your wisdom, energy, and honesty to Healthy Mind, Healthy Life. And to our audience, stay curious, stay courageous, and keep building your life from the ground.